Good evening. Thank you for attending the programming at the LaSalle Public Library. This is Donna Blomquist, and tonight we will be taking a little look ahead for spring with a gardening program. But before we do that, let me just give you a few announcements. You can see some of the programs on the screen. On February 23rd, Claire Evans will be back with Pottering Around the UK. So if you want to travel around Scotland and England and maybe even Wales, I'm not sure, to see some of the key stops in the Harry Potter novels and films, please join us for that. I think you probably remember Downton Abbey with Claire, so this will be another one of those wonderful UK programs. On March 9th, we will be hosting author Laura Willig with Band of Sisters. Her book will be coming out on March 2nd, and we will have several copies available at the library if you'd like to read the book before the program on the 9th. Following Lauren's program, we have a Saturday program, so mark your calendars for that. It won't be our usual Tuesday evening, with Father Dominic of local St. Bede Academy fame and PBS national fame. The bread monk will be with us, and we will be baking for Easter. So please mark your calendar on that Saturday, March 13th, from 1 to 2:30 to enjoy a baking program. Then Natalie, our speaker from tonight, will be back on March 16th to bring us a little closer to spring with another gardening program, growing food no matter the garden size. And a new announcement for tonight that we don't have up on the screen, we will be hosting as part of a system presentation, an author visit with thriller author John Sanford. So we will have John Sanford here on a Wednesday night, virtually, April 14th at 7 p.m. So please watch for that and sign up early. And with that, I'm going to say, I want to introduce Natalie. Natalie Martin is Master Gardener for the U of I LaSalle County Extension Office. Natalie has done numerous gardening programs for us, and we always look forward to them. We will be recording Natalie's program tonight. You may have seen that she did list some resources in the chat already. Those will also be posted on our website with the recording, should you need to refer to them. And with that, I am going to ask Natalie to come on. I'm going to close my microphone. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you guys for joining me. I have seen some familiar names in the group, so thank you for returning. I haven't scared you away with my overly enthusiastic and somewhat disorganized programs I have done from time to time. Donna talked about the program coming up in March, but we're actually going to be doing a full series of gardening programs all throughout the summer. And it's going to be about growing food, mainly growing food crops that you can use in your kitchen. And we'll do some hands-on demonstrations throughout the summer of different recipes. And you guys will go home with those recipes as well. But I'm putting the cart before the horse because tonight is actually all about seeds. And so this is going to be the beginning, and you might be thinking that this is way too early to get started. I'm not even ready to grow things. My whole yard is covered in potentially 18 inches of snow if it's like my yard. And yes, it's not really time to think about, you can think about what you want to put out there and start planning it out and think about construction that you want to start doing in your yard. But some plants, things like celery and peppers and tomatoes, those things you're going to want to start those seeds right now at this time of the year so that they're ready to go out and be their most productive when it gets warm enough. So we're going to kind of walk through that process, just basically start to finish, the equipment you would need, the potential seeds that you would choose. We'll look at a seed packet so you can kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. And then kind of what you need to do to turn those into actual plants. Like Donna referenced, I did throw some resources in the chat box. There's some videos, additional videos to watch. I wish I had labeled them better, but the two top YouTube videos are from the University of Illinois Extension. Those are going to be the official extension educators that put those videos together. And then there's a couple text articles if you're not much of a YouTube person. And then there's an article about supplemental lighting that you can use if you are going to start seeds indoors. And then the final one is not like a, I tend to like to use university or official resources, but this one blog that I follow is called Homestead and Chill, and they have a really in-depth, beneficial seed starting just guide, and they go through kind of everything from what seeds you should plant when to what lighting, and they have tons and tons of pictures. So if you are a picture person, Bonnie, if you're in the chat, you can just scroll up, and if you can't see it, I can try to post them again. So let me know if you can't find those. But there should be, if you are in the chat anywhere, they should be just right above you. So I can scroll up in my chat. Either way, Donna will get those resources to you on the website after the program, or Bonnie, I can message you on your own, separately here. I can just send them right directly to you. Here, let me try to do that. Yeah, my chat box has a scroll up, so that's very weird. Let me see if I can send it right to you, Bonnie. Sorry, everybody. We'll get going here in just a second. Let's see. This might send it to everybody again, but better than not having it. There you go. I should have sent it to everybody. But let's get started. We'll kind of dive into like why you might be interested in starting things from seed. And that's a great question because it's a lot of work. You know what I mean? It's definitely a lot of extra time maybe and energy that you might not normally have spent in your garden. Definitely when you are starting things from seed, it's a lot more things you have to think about. But one of the really great benefits is kind of saving money in that. And buying a packet of seeds, you can buy a packet of seeds sometimes for what you can buy for just one plant, and that can be up to 25 to sometimes over 100 plants, depending on which kind of seeds you buy. So each packet of seeds a lot of times is $3 to $5. And you really can't beat that as far as like a cost savings. Oh, I usually turn my video on. This is what I look like, everybody. Hello. Nice to see everybody. And I will leave that on because facial expressions are everything. And I have some things I want to show you guys that I brought with me tonight. So cost savings is definitely going to be one of your biggest benefits when you're starting things from seeds. Plant success is another one. If you start a plant from seed inside, that's what we're going to be focusing on, is starting it from seed inside your house. You're going to be guaranteeing, better success for that plant rather than if you had planted it outside to begin with. Some seeds you can plant directly in the ground, or they ask you to plant them directly in the ground and not start them inside. But if you planting something, especially like a pepper, and starting it inside gives it that opportunity to grow away from pests or disease or weather changes, and gives it the best chance of that seed turning into a full plant. You're really protecting it. It's in a little nursery and you're babying it so that it can grow up and become a full-size plant. So the process would be that you would start the seeds inside and grow them and then put them outside when they're ready and plant them in the ground. And then it's really, I think that you get this great, the science and education aspect, the sense of accomplishment like that. I grew successfully plants, almost all of my plants from seeds last year. Now, most of the time I do about 50-50 or 25-75 or 10-90, depending on the year or how much time I have. But last year I grew almost all of them from seeds, and it was this really great feeling. And I spent almost no money on plants because I already had the seeds. I even used, a lot of times seeds had expiration dates, but I even used seeds from previous years. So I didn't spend any extra money on the actual plants. And it was just this amazing win for me. So so there's, you get kind of this just really great feeling. I don't know. I just love plants. So when you're starting them, it's I would say 90% of the time when people are starting them from seed, it's because they want to save money. And then, you get all the other stuff as kind of a side benefit. I would say the number one question that people ask me when they're trying to start seeds is, what container should I use? Because that's where you're going to spend a lot of money when you're getting seeds going, because you will have to spend a little bit of money, or not necessarily money, but source equipment somehow. You know, you can use just about anything to start seeds. Even in these pictures, you can see some recycled and some, these look like old Tupperware containers. And then these are actual seedling starters in this picture. And then it looks like up here, there's some cardboard kind of tube thingies, like toilet paper tubes. There you go. So you can really spend as much or as little as you would like. I use a variety of different things. When I'm doing it, I have the, sorry, I'm clicking all over the place here. I save a lot of these types of things that you buy your other plants in. I save a lot of these and I get things started in there. You can, like in the picture, you can use eggshells or egg cartons, but they're very shallow. When you're looking at an eggshell, you know, you've only got 1.5 inches, 2 inches of space. Now, you're going to have, if it's something that has a very quick germination time, so germination will be from when it goes from a seed to a plant, to it like it starts to sprout. If it's something with a really quick germination time and you don't have to spend a lot of time inside, it might be an okay option, but it has a very limited amount of soil, soil, so very little amount of nutrients, and very little amount of water that would be held at any point in time. So it might just need a little bit more upkeep. But the number one thing that you want to think about when you're thinking about a container is drainage, for sure. Seeds are very, very fragile. So they are susceptible to overwatering or over drying, things like that. Very susceptible to wind, to being blown away, depending on the seeds. So you really want to think about that when you're thinking about a container. What my standard is that I use right now that I've been loving, I bought from Amazon. They're these little tiny little cups, and they come in like a pack of 100, and they fit perfectly in these trays. And I also bought these on Amazon, and you just kind of set them down in it, and you can fit, I think it's like 5 across and 10 wide, so you can get 50 plants in this one container. So I really love those. You know, I've tried a bunch of different things, and I really, once I fill up those and have used all of them, I go to whatever I can find. So if I've got some more of these, you know, smaller things, I can set them right down in here. And I'll tell you a little bit more about why I use those trays in a little bit. You can also get, ooh, I almost just stuffed soil all over my office. That would be terrible. You can get these little peat containers. A lot of times you don't even necessarily need a full container, but you can get these little peat moss pellets and put your seeds right in there, or they have, you know, the store-made peat like cups. So those are great. You can, like you said, you can use toilet paper tubes and save those and save those and save those and use those to plant. And the thing about toilet paper tubes or egg cartons or eggshells, you can plant those right into the ground. You don't need to unearth the plant and plant it there. You can make some yourself out of newspaper. Some people will wrap newspaper around a cup really tightly, and it'll hold into a little cylinder that you can actually put soil in it and water in, and then you can again plant that right into the ground. So really, it's going to be whatever you want, but you want to have drainage in the bottom. So if you're going to use an eggshell or an egg carton, you want to make sure that there's a decent hole in the ground, in the bottom, so that everything can drain through. If you're going to just buy some, which I think that I got 100 of these little cups for $18. I should have had that handy for you, or a link even, but you can see they've got nice drainage holes. Again, because you want to make sure that really the seeds are just moist and damp, so that they're getting water, but they're not sitting in any water, because seeds will rot, and then again they won't be able to germinate. So really, but it's a very flexible system. Like I said, you could spend as much or as little as you could potentially want. Lighting is going to be your number one concern with any plant ever. Inside plant, seeds, outside plants, you know, lighting and how much actual UV light a plant gets is going to be the most important thing. So we're looking at this picture right here, and we have a couple of different lights that are a different distance away. So this is an example of artificial lighting. When you're starting seeds, you know, a lot of times you're going to be in your kitchen or near a window, somewhere that your light is coming in. Now, I did all of my seeds last year without adding any artificial lighting, and it went fine. Could it have gone better? Absolutely. Been more productive, been more successful? Sure. But I was able to have success with just light coming in through my kitchen window. Now, it is a south-facing window, so it's getting as much sun as I can possibly get. You're going to want about 12 to 14 hours of sunlight or artificial light. So that's a long time. And not a lot of folks can find an area in their house that's going to provide that amount of light. Or I'm sorry, 12 to 16. So a lot of folks choose to use artificial lighting. And this can be anything from fluorescent lights like you see in this picture. Sometimes you can get a light bulb and put a lamp like this one behind me and put a correct size. You have to have a certain amount of UV lights. And it's going to be like a combination of red. It's a light bulb that is labeled at the hardware store, so you can't get confused. But you know, you can use whatever you have, or you can give it a shot and try it natural lighting. Like I said, I had okay luck with it last year and was able to grow things really well. So location, 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 making sure that your plants are getting plenty of light. And if you can't get it through the natural light, then you are getting it through an artificial apparatus of some kind. If you're lucky enough to have a greenhouse or a small greenhouse setup in your yard, that's great because it's getting that light, probably sufficient light for all your stuff. Amazing. However, if you're in Illinois, that temperature might be too cold to actually germinate your seeds, and they're going to be still dormant, and you may not have success. But I found that you can, and this is going to go along with this next note, you can add a heat source, like either like a heating element or a heat lamp inside that greenhouse that would hold the temperature, kind of keep it at 75 or above. Or these are a heat mat. You can see it plugs in, and this would go right below your seedling. So I bought this one. It's the first time I'm going to use it, guys. So this is something that was recommended to me. But you can set it like, I bought this size. They come in all different sizes, but I bought this size because it'll sit and be the exact length of this, but it's another expense. So I totally get if you don't want to buy something like this, if you're not sure, but I bought one because I'm going to give it a shot this year. And if it's magic and I can't believe how well it worked, then I'm going to buy another one. But right now I'm just going to stick with the one and see how it goes, and maybe put it on something like a pepper or something like that that's really sensitive. So this is kind of like overloading you with equipment, but the next step is going to be what kind of soil medium you want to start with. Really quick, in this picture, speaking of things you can start with, see those little seed pack or those plant packs, that 6-hole, I'm pointing to it on the screen, but you can't see that. This little canister here, you can absolutely use those to start your seeds. It's perfect. You know what I mean? This is, you know, you can save these up and use these and set them in a tray, because obviously if you water them, it's going to drain out onto the bottom. But yeah, these are perfect. Also, you can use this as well. So soil is going to be, you know, the next kind of thing. There are plenty of people. I made mine last year with compost, and you can buy a seed starting mix that's going to have be well drained. I have some here in a little cup, but it's very light. You know, a lot of times when you buy potting soil, it is very clumpy and heavy and sticks together. This is specifically made for drainage, because again, we talked about water control is going to be super important for your seeds so that they don't rot and they don't, you know, get waterlogged or anything like that. So soil starting mix that you buy at the store is going to be made specifically for seed starting mix that you buy at the store, not soil starting mix. But you can make your own, absolutely. A lot of people talk about mixing compost, 100% compost, because compost is going to be where you get your nutrients. You want all those good nutrients. A lot of times people don't recommend using actual potting soil because it hasn't been It might have bugs or it might have bacteria in it. So you want to go with a compost that has, been treated so that you're not exposing your seeds to anything like that. And then you're going to want to mix something into it to drain it. And I have a couple options here. This is a perlite, and this is a man-made kind of, it's the white pieces that you see in potting soil. But it's a drainage medium that you add to your soil. I spilled it all over my keyboard, everybody. Promise you chaos, and don't worry, it seeps in everywhere. So it's going to add that airspace so your water can travel through and it won't overload those seeds. And then this other one, this is coconut coir. And if you've never seen coconut coir before, it is the outside of coconut. Oh, we're going to get a visit from my dog, so I hope he's not noisy. I'm sorry. It's the outside of coconut husks. So that brown kind of fuzzy, furry outside. It's that mixture, and they peel it off and then grind it down, and you can add it to your soil mix so that you have nice drainage. So those are kind of the things that you would need, and you would want to mix like 1 part of coconut coir or perlite to 3 parts compost, I believe, or 1 to 4, something like that. So you can really want to make sure that you're providing a material that has good drainage. Oops, there we go. I went too fast. And those are going to be the main things that you need, because your soil is going to provide that drainage. It's going to provide your nutrients, like we talked about. It's going to get the food for the plant from that compost or whatever soil medium. And then it's going to provide support once it starts to grow. It needs to be stable enough, which is why you wouldn't want to have too much perlite or too much coconut coir, because that would allow your plants to topple over. So you want to make sure you're providing a nice firm base. So it's walking a fine line, guys. If you're overwhelmed, I understand. Moving on to how you choose your seeds. Now, these are my food crop seeds that I picked for this year. It's a lot. It's a lot, folks. I do a whole series of raised bed gardens in my backyard, and we're growing a lot this year. But how do you choose? The number one thing that you want to pick is things that you will use. I understand there's a lot of folks that grow tons and tons of tomatoes. Well, I'm the only person that eats raw tomatoes in my family. So I don't want to grow a ton of tomatoes unless it's something that I can use to make sauce or something like that. So I choose a cherry Roma. So it's a Roma tomato that's cherry sized, so that it can be a snacking tomato for me, or I can cook it down and it can be a paste tomato. So I think about that. I think about what I'm going to use or what costs a lot of money. Sometimes lettuces and things like that, greens, those can cost a lot of money at the grocery store, but they're fairly easy to grow in your yard. So that might be, if you eat a lot of salads or kale or spinach, that might be something that you want to grow so that you can save that money once you're doing it, because sometimes even kale, you can freeze kale, you can freeze spinach. So if you're growing too much throughout the summer, you can keep it for fall and winter, early spring. So think really about what you will use, because the worst thing you can do is grow a bunch of stuff and throw it in the garbage. It's such an unsatisfying thing to do, because you spent all this time and energy and money growing it. You want to make sure that you're using it. Sorry, I just saw that there was a chat question. My neighbor warms his dirt before planting. He puts it in a warm area of his house near his radiator. Yes, so that it could provide a couple of things. If you're warming it, you're going to heat it higher so that it's killing all of your bacterias and your bugs. That's great. And then if you're warming your soil, we're talking about that, providing that heat underneath to help it germinate. Absolutely, that makes total sense. And what a smart way. Change my page, I'm sorry. There we go. There we are. We're back. I hope I didn't give anyone motion sickness. And then think about how much care it's going to provide and how much space it will take up. If you only have a small yard, pumpkins should not be on your top 10 list of things to grow from seed. They're very easy to grow, or they can be very easy to grow from seed, but they take up a ton of space. So it's probably not a great thing to grow. But And maybe you want to grow tomatoes, but you want to grow a container variety of tomatoes. So you kind of do your research and think about what you have space for and then what you have time for, because some plants will require more maintenance, more weeding, lots of picking and pinching of things like, even sometimes basil is a very high maintenance herb, because you constantly have to go out, sometimes daily in the summer, and pinch off the blooms and make sure that it's kind of growing how you want it to grow, because it can easily get leggy and not be productive if you aren't paying attention. So think about what might not require a ton of care if you're someone that doesn't have a ton of time, or if you have more time in the summer and you're available, then go for it and pick something a little bit more high maintenance. And then you want to take a look at a seed packet. And I'm going to see, I haven't ever opened a link in the middle of a presentation, but look, it's working. So we're going to take a look at one of the varieties that I bought this year. This is a Scarlet Nantes carrot, and this is a bestseller on Seed Savers. And if you're not, you can really get your seeds from anywhere. They have them at the hardware store. They have them at almost any garden center. But I order mine online because I want to get them right at the beginning of the season, and I want to pick them out, and I want to support not necessarily a small business, because Seed Savers is pretty big, but Seed Savers does a lot with heirloom variety seeds, and heirloom seeds are going to be a type of seed or plant that has been passed on from generation to generation. They're harvesting the seeds every year and saving them, and some of these plants have been grown for centuries. Some of them are native varieties that have been were Native American bred plants that have been passed around. So I really like to support organizations that do things like that. But again, there's no real wrong answer. You can kind of see what works for you. I like to buy organic seeds or heirloom seeds, but again, it's really up to you. So when we look, if you are buying online, you can look at a bunch of different things. You can see my packet of seeds was $3.25. You can see that it comes, it should say somewhere in here, maybe I missed it, how many seeds. Yeah, so it says there's 21,000 seeds per ounce. And so I bought an 1/8 of an ounce packet. So that would be 21,000 divided by 8. That's about how many seeds I'm gonna get. And carrots are going to be grown in a different way. You don't have those are sown right outside, and you just sow a bunch of seeds right on the surface, and then weed out the ones you like, the extras that you don't want, that aren't growing correctly. So it'll tell you a little bit about the. I hope everyone can see this. I hope I'm not just talking, but so you can see the kind of description of the carrots. You can also see a little bit of the history, and then you can see how the instructions on, sorry, someone raised their hand. I'm trying to, okay, good. Thanks, Donna. Woohoo! Great. Now I clicked a link. Sorry, everybody. So you lose the focus in this game for 1 second. So it tells you a little bit online, and then I'll show you a little bit about what it's like on the actual seed packet when it comes to your house. So it tells you a little bit about how you should grow it. It'll tell you when you should grow it, sow seeds outdoors 3 to 4 weeks before last spring frost, or as soon as the soil can be worked. So that's going to tell you that it's going to take a little longer to grow this carrot, 65 to 75 days. So you want to get it as early in the soil as you possibly can. If you get it in a little later, it's going to be fine. You just want to take advantage of that growing season, which is why they recommend getting it in so early. But it also might mean that this carrot might like it a little cold. And so it might like when it gets a little cold, and that might be helpful to it. So it says carrots are slow to germinate and need steady moisture until germination. So that tells you that you want to lightly, you don't want to water it with a big hose and disturb all the carrots. You want to give it more of a mist. So if you have one of those hoses that has a change, has a spout that changes, that's going to be what you would want to use. So the information that's on the website is going to be great to give you I'm going to make sure that I'm showing you the correct stuff. Okay, perfect. Then, yeah. So you want to make sure that you are doing a little bit of research before you pick the things, because someone might be like, you know what, I really want to grow tomatoes, so I'm just going to buy a tomato. But you want to make sure that you're buying a tomato that will be the right one for you. You want to make sure that if you like those big tomato slices and eating raw tomatoes, then a beefsteak might be a great choice for you. If you want to make your own sauce, then maybe a Roma or a paste style tomato is the best for you. So do your research and think about what you want before you get it. And then you'll see, this is what a seed packet would look like if you haven't seen one before. Maybe you've seen one in the store. So in the front, some of them will have a picture, but I have another one here that doesn't really have a picture, but it has an illustration of what it is. And I'm growing a mixture of, I'm doing cut flowers this year, but I'm also doing food crops. So, so I'm growing some flowers from seeds as well. You can grow really anything, and if it's a plant, you can grow it from seed. Whether it's easy or hard I can't guarantee, but you can grow it from seed. It just might be hard. So just kind of like on the website, you'll turn it over and it's going to have some of that information. It's going to be hard to read for you guys, but this one says it starts indoors and it says 8 weeks before last frost. Germination 14 days, so that's how long it's going to take to turn into a plant. Plant outdoors, so then once you get it germinated and it's a plant, you're going to want to plant them outdoors 12 to 24 inches apart. So that means that in a square, I would have one plant per square foot, basically. And then how much sun is it going to need? It's going to need full sun. So this is a pepper. Look at how cute this pepper is, by the way. It's like tiny little, it grows like, it's really beautiful. I liked it because it was a little bit, it's a little bit like decorative as well as, this is a medium hot pepper. Last frost in Illinois, I'm going to get it wrong because it does adjust and it is changing with climate change, but I keep it in my calendar. I believe it's March 24th this year, but let me just check. I'm wrong. Of course I'm wrong. Maybe it's April 24th. I should be able to search that, but I have a lot of things in my calendar, so you never know. I'll look it out. April 30th, not even close. April 30th, March 20th, that's like the first day of spring. Sorry, everybody. April 30th is our last frost date for 2021. So you want to then, and you can look that up if you forget, our zone is 5A, I believe. So you can just type in last frost date, and there's like, I think Farmer's Almanac has a calculator, tons of websites have a calculator where they'll literally have you just put in your zip code and it'll tell you. It'll also tell you when your first frost date is in the fall, because there's other things like that if you're going to grow a fall or winter garden, or you're going to want to grow things like poppies or something like that that you want to plant in the fall before the first frost date. Whew, gosh. Donna's throwing me some curveball questions today. And again, but this seed packet's going to give you basic information because it's trying to fit that information that you would need onto this tiny little square. So if you're reading it and you're like, it's not enough. It's not enough info. Then you do your research. Then you Google planting tips for this variety of pepper, and maybe it'll be the seed company that comes up. Maybe it'll be somebody who's grown them on their own. But tons and tons of resources are out there to find, tips and things like that. And each variety is going to be different. And you'll also speak, and one more note about space requirements. Certain things like beans here in this picture, tomatoes, certain things like that might require some sort of growing apparatus once they are actual plants and outside. Like tomatoes can benefit sometimes from a cage, wire cage that goes up around them to help hold them up, because once they get those hopefully fruits on them, they're going to maybe sag or fall over or break the stems. So you want to make sure you're doing a little research on beans would do best if they have a trellis. So you want to make sure that you're prepared when you're thinking about what you want to choose. If you're like, I don't want anything that needs equipment, how about carrots? Carrots don't require any equipment. You just put them on the ground. So just kind of think about what works for you. Time for planting. Oh, I didn't bring my labels up here. It'll be okay. Get everything ready. Don't just be like, I'm going to plant. Gather everything together. Make sure you have all your stuff, because once you're starting, your hands are going to be dirty. It's going to be I think it's good to get started and do as much as you can in one sitting, because sometimes if you're like me, you sit down to do it and then you're like, oh, I'll do the rest tomorrow. And then you won't. Trust me. Just do it. Plan your Saturday or Friday night or whatever. We're not going anywhere. It's still COVID times. So just try to get as much done, because I feel like you'll be better motivated and more accomplished if you do it that way. Prepare your materials, get your cups, get your soil ready, get all the seeds ready, and make a plan for what you're going to do. Okay, I've got this tray. This tray I want to be all peppers, 15 pepper plants. I'm getting ambitious, or whatever. Or I want 5 of this, 5 of this, 5 of this, 5 of this, and get everything set out and ready with a plan. And maybe make some notes, because you want to keep track in case labels is next, we'll get there, but you want to keep track so that you don't get confused. You want to know where everything is after you've planted it. Once you've put these seeds in here, you can see in this picture, there's 3 tiny tomato seeds. And if it wasn't for this label that she has, who would know? Nobody would know. And even once they start to grow, you might not know, really, until they kind of get big enough to have true leaves. And we'll talk about that in a second. True leaves, you might not know. And even once they have true leaves, it might still be hard. Labels. You can see in this picture, she's got these little plastic labels. I was gifted, because I'm not bougie enough to have these on my own, some bamboo ones that have a big wide label area on them. But really what I've used more often than not is pieces of cardboard that I wrote on with permanent marker. So it doesn't have to be fancy. And a lot of times I'll write on the cardboard or whatever, 5 tomatoes, 5, or whatever variety of tomato, 5. And then put it right above the row. But it could be anything. It can be fancy, but if you're not going to have an entire row of the same thing, you'll want to put a label in each plant, because you want to make sure you know what's up, you know what it is. She is planting in a bigger vessel, because tomatoes, can get pretty big, and you want to make sure it has enough room to develop root sizes and stuff like that. Otherwise, you can transplant, and that's totally fine as well. Dampen your medium, dampen your soil is my next tip on this. When you go in with already moistened soil, there's no disturbance to your seeds afterwards. It's already got that moisture in there. You don't have to water it and completely unearth these seeds that you just did. So get that soil moistened before you start planting your seeds. It's saving you the step, and it's also giving you a better chance of success. And then seeding. Depending on the seed, you might just set it on the surface of the soil and cover it up, to be honest. Sometimes you have to put it in 1/4 of an inch. What I use, and I can't even believe I didn't bring it up, I use a wooden spoon, an old wooden spoon that broke, and I have little markers that are, so like say this is the wooden spoon handle, I would have a mark for 1/4 inch, mark for 1/2 inch, mark for 1 inch, or whatever, all the way up. And I poke it down to that marker. I push it down into the soil until it reaches that 1/4 inch marker or whatever, and then drop the seeds in and cover it back up. I like to go through and poke all my holes and then drop in my seeds so that I remember exactly where I'm at. It's going to be, again, whatever system works, and really read those directions on that soil. So it says, yeah, this pepper that I showed you, this Aurora pepper, says sow seeds indoors 1/4 inch deep. So I would make a 1/4 inch hole, and then I would put 2 to 3, but no more than 5, 2 to 3 is what I would recommend, seeds in each cup, because it's gambling. Gardening is all about gambling. We hope it works out, right? We're betting our money and our time that it's going to work out. But the more seeds that you have in one hole, the better chance you will have of germination. Sometimes seeds are just duds. It just doesn't, sometimes they just do not grow, and that's not your fault. Don't take it personally. But sometimes they just don't grow. And so if you have 2 or 3 or up to 5 in one area, hopefully one of those will grow, and then you can pull out the rest of the seedlings. I have hard times with waste sometimes, so getting rid of those little seedlings that have germinated and throwing them out is very hard for me. You can always plant them again in other soil, and they might germinate, but you can always, but plant a couple seeds in there and then pull out the extras is going to be your best thing. So then you've already got your soil dampened. Once you're done planting, you're ready to go. And then look at, then success. Then you're done, folks. Just kidding. There's still lots of steps. I've got a bunch of things on this page that really we're going to look at. The first one here, you can see that this is cover, and you can use really anything. These covers that they have here are specially made for these trays that they have on there. I've used those plastic covers that go on those foil, like roasting pans or whatever. I've used those. I've used saran wrap. Anything works. But what this is doing is it's not allowing your air in your house to pull the moisture out of the soil. It's a very dry time of year. The static in my hair tells me that. So with it being dry, the air is going to suck moisture from anywhere it can. So keeping them covered and the soil moist is going to be important. It also kind of helps hold in heat. So if you are having it over by a window, it's going to help as a buffer between your seeds and like a cold window. And it's really, so there's a lot of really good benefits to having a cover over the top here. We're going to want to water our seeds from below. And this is we're showing it right here in this picture. She's got these trays like I have here, and she's putting the water right down into the tray. And then because your soil is already moist, it's just the roots are going to be able to pull directly through the bottom. Like we said, the seeds are very fragile, so you don't want to water from the top and displace it. But if your soil does start to dry out on the top, just spritzing it with a water bottle to get it moistened back up. But you might have to do it a couple of times a day once it dries out. It's hard to kind of come back from. And then you're going to, once they do grow, because we're optimists here, they're going to have this tiny little baby plant, and it's going to have 2 little baby leaves, and it's not going to look like anything, and everything's going to look alike. And then when it starts to get bigger, like these ones in this middle picture here, they're going to actually develop the leaves of that plant. They're going to start to look more like whatever that plant is. And that's when you're going to start to thin it out. And you can see she's gone through and pulled out all of the extras so that one plant has the best chance of success. If you leave all these in there, sometimes it'll affect how your plant grows, because if you're having 2 growing right next to each other, they're going to battle, and they're going to grow in funky ways. If you have 2 bunch in there, they're going to battle with each other for lighting. They're going to battle with each other for nutrients and water. So instead of having, say you have 1 water, just think of our water as 1, but you have 2 plants, then the plant's not getting 1 water, the plant is each getting a half water. And if you have 4 seedlings in there, each of them is getting a quarter water. So none of them are getting the water that they need. So that's important. You want to make sure you're thinning them out. Also, when you have those first 2 little babies coming up, they're going to be very weak. It's very weak, just like human babies. They're going to be weak. So we have to make them stronger. And this is not like a tried and true thing, but one thing that is recommended is putting like an oscillating fan or airflow, not external airflow because it'll be too cold, but like a fan from outside, pointing that at your seedlings. And if you imagine, you have this seedling and it's constantly being blown like this, it's going to fight against it and strengthen its stem so that it doesn't fall over. So it's going to be constantly have this air blowing at it. So it needs to stay strong. So it's going to really strengthen that stem and make a really strong plant base so that it can continue to grow upright and reach hopefully a real plant size. And this last picture, of course, my screen faces are over the top. So if those are, please, you can minimize them. But you can see that she's now moved her seedlings outside. You can see our kale and lettuces have started to grow. Great job. And the reason that she's doing that is she's starting to allow them to fledge the nest. So they've been inside this whole time. I mean, maybe your thermostat is set at 72 lovely degrees, but outside it's still 40 degrees. So you'll start to put your seedlings outside during the day. to kind of get used to, obviously not if it's frosting out, please don't do that. Don't be like, Natalie said so, but it's only 30 degrees and all my plants died. I didn't say that. When it's starting to get nice out, you want to, above 40 degrees, above 45 degrees, start putting them outside during the day so that they can start to get used to it in the sun, you know, really get used to the outdoor temperatures. And so that once you bring them outside, because if you just take this plant that's been living the life at 72 degrees and you just shove it outside out of your nest, it's going to die because it's going to be like, what's happening? I don't know. And it's not going to make it. So you'll definitely want to start bringing it outside for a couple hours at a time. And then eventually you will get to plant it into the ground, but it's going to be after that last frost date, you know, after that April 30th date. And so that it's got the best chance of living. Now, that's last frost date is a suggestion. So, you know, it's snowed on my birthday in May before, lucky me. So, you know, think about Illinois. If you want to leave it out and push it a little past that last frost date, you know, that's fine. But it's a good rule of thumb. And when you're thinking about seedlings, honestly, those seedlings are okay. You can bring them inside for a little bit more time, but eventually they're going to run out of root space for that in that tiny little seed starting canister that you have. They're going to run out of root space is going to be your problem. So you really want to think about that when, if you're like, oh, I'm nervous and I don't want to put them out yet. Eventually you got to cut the cord with those plants and put them outside. So, yeah, think about that. Again, these are the resources that I did share in the chat. Oh, that's basically it. Once you planted them into the ground outside, you're past the seed starting phase. I hate to be blunt about the end of this program, but then it's a whole nother program. So once you kind of have started and finished, you know, the seedling portion and planted them outside, my job is done here. But if you are interested in watching more stuff or getting more information, these were the resources that I did share in the chat box, and you can copy and paste those. Like I said, most of them are U of I Extension resources, except for that homestead and chill at the bottom. And she has a lot of different seed starting recommendations, but then she's got recommendations for anything. Really quick, before we go to questions, I did want to talk about the extension itself. Because University of the Master Gardener program is the flagship program for the University of Illinois Extension. An extension is through your state university system. Almost every state has one. And then the extension offers educational services and resources to all sorts of different things. Master Gardener, Master Naturalist are two that you might have heard of. And we do have one that spans Bureau, LaSalle, Marshall, and Putnam. And we have offices in Ottawa. And that's where you can find us if you're interested in asking a question or having a program done by a Master Gardener or Master Naturalist. If you'd like me to come back, tell Donna, but you can also contact Meg at meo@illinois.edu, and that's her phone number right there. And Meg is our coordinator and kind of make sure that we're all going where we need to go. But that's really it for me. Is there a seed starter program? Let's see, is there a seed starter program? I'm going to jump into some questions. Sorry, I've only had half that conversation out loud. Is there a seed starter program for native seeds? I actually have some native seeds here with me somewhere. Where are they? Oh, I hid them down here. So you can get seeds for all sorts of native plants. Let me see if I can grab one really quick here. Let's see. Butterfly weed. Let's see, this one's just bee food. Oh, cool, here's one. Prairie clover. So you can buy all sorts of them. I would make sure that if you're buying like a pollinator garden seed or native seeds, buy them from a reputable source. Make sure you're getting actual Illinois native, or if you are in Illinois, there might be people here from other states, but whatever your state is, make sure you're buying seeds from your state, or it doesn't have to be from your state, but it's a plant that is meant for your state, so you're not introducing a native species. This is purple prairie clover. And this one is one you can start indoors. So I don't know if you can see it. This is what it looks like. I do have a pollinator garden on the south side of my house. We had monarch butterflies naturally, or monarch caterpillars naturally find it this year. Is very exciting for me and my kids. But it would start just as if You just follow the seed instructions just like you would for anything. This one, start indoors in early spring, germination 10 to 20 days, plant outside 12 inches apart and in full sun. And it'll, this one I did get from Seed Savers. They do have a whole pollinator garden area. And you can really find whatever you'd like. And they do have plants, you can do cut flowers. I think I mentioned that earlier, cut flowers, native plants, things like that, really whatever you want. Let's see. Sarah asked, can you talk about growing herbs like basil? Absolutely. I grew basil from seed last year. I planted it in a container, the seeds directly into a container. I planted it past the last frost date. It was like an afterthought, just said, I'll throw these out there. And it grew great. It grew really great. If I don't think I have any basil seeds. Basil seeds are so tiny. So you got to be careful, but so you don't lose them. And with that, I planted planted maybe in a container like this size, maybe a 12 to 15 inch diameter container. I probably planted 10 different plants, just clustered them in there and then weeded out the extras when they started to grow. How many seeds per container? It's going to really depend on the size of your container. You can grow a small one and only put a couple, just like with anything else. You want to poke your little hole and then, poke the little hole and then put 2 to 3 seeds in each one. I would say if you're going to do like a tiny container, like a 6-inch diameter, you could probably put 4 different plantings of seeds in there. And then if it's starting to get overcrowded, just weed it out, no problem. Let's see, seed per container. R Ford says, can we get a link to the Amazon thing? I will get you one. I'll do it after this program. I'll do it at the end after all the questions, just so that people, if they're waiting for their question to be asked, they're not like having me search through the internet on screen for them. So yes, I will get that for you if you just hang out for 1 second. Where can we find information on what variety of specific vegetables grow best in this area? For example, which varieties of tomatoes would grow best in the Illinois Valley? So, in my opinion, in the summer, we're just like any growing season. What varieties grow best? It's going to depend on how much sun you have. Last year, I grew Amish paste tomatoes and I grew container or cherry Romas, like I talked about earlier. But really, you can grow whatever tomato you want. It's going to be, it's just going to be paying attention to when to put them outside. Or if you're not going to grow them from seed, then you can just buy the plant, whatever plant you want. But you can grow anything here during the summer. Things like citruses and things that have a different growing season or need a lot of sunlight and heat. Those are the kinds of things that won't grow well here. But things like tomatoes, cucumbers, squashes, we can grow anything, but only for a short period of time. We have such a limited growing season. But really, it's very successful and anything should grow during that time of the year. Did I miss any questions besides the link to the Amazon program?
I think you got all those questions,
Okay.
Natalie. I have a couple here.
Yeah, go for it. Hit me up.
All right, so I'm looking at the things that we have to do when we set our Saturday afternoon aside to get our seed planting done.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, since most people probably aren't planting an acre or a half acre, we're going to plant either a few containers or a few raised beds. So I just thought, going as a small thing, what if we had, for example, 12 types of plants, carrots, cucumbers, tomatoes, and let's say we had 10 of each plant, so 120 plants. So it's now Saturday afternoon. I have my water or coffee or drink of choice.
Yes.
And I'm sitting in my basement or my kitchen table, and I've assembled all of my tools, as you said, and I've got my soil, and I have my seed packets there. I have all the containers that I need to work with. And I begin making my holes the proper depth, and I plant my seeds and my cleanup. How long from start to finish for 120 plants?
120 plants. It's really fast once you've assembled everything. And just really quick, I am throwing these buy links for everything into the chat. And then I will, hold on one second. But of course, I just sent it to just the panelists. So sorry, Donna and Rico, you got everything, just the two of you. Okay, so how much time? I would say, if you're doing 120 plants and you have everything assembled, you gather everything, I'm going to say probably 3 hours.
Wow, that's great.
I don't really think if you have everything assembled, I don't think takes that long. You can set aside 6 hours, but if you think about it as an assembly line, especially, if you're doing it by yourself, because you're fumbling things and you have to get everything by yourself, it could take a little longer, but I go through, I put all my cups in, I get them, filled with wet soil, and I go boop, 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 and I get the whole assembly line. And this is going to hold 50. So if you're doing 120, you would maybe do, 2.5 of these. So, you get all of them set with your soil, and then you go through them with your labels, and then you go through with your poking stick, and you get all your holes poked, and then you drop your seeds in. I don't think it would take more than 3 hours maximum.
Well, I was thinking 4 myself.
Yeah.
Imagining how I would do it. So really, that is not, and that would make a decent garden.
120 plants. Some people might say that's too big, depending on who they are. You know what I mean? If you're just hoping to have, some people want just one tomato plant and one pepper plant, and that's going to, but 120, that's going to be a great season. I tend to go to excess just to see what happens, but 120 plants, I think, is a great amount of plants and would be good for like a family.
So I don't think that 4 hours is a tremendous investment of time. I think that would be great. And, you could order online or you could go to the store, but that time is incidental.
Everything that I got that I showed you today, I either ordered online or ordered through curbside pickup. I got all my seed starting mix through curbside pickup from Home Depot. I ordered my coconut coir and I even ordered a giant bag of vermiculite through Amazon. If that's it's huge. It's almost as tall as I am, which I did not read when I ordered it. So I have vermiculite for 12 years. If anyone needs some, let me know. I'll sell it on the black market. But yeah, I don't think so. The time really comes in when you kind of check it every day and, but really even that, it's 10, 15 minutes every day, making sure that everything's watered, has enough water. You might not even need to water it every day. Oh, I did forget one step. I don't know do we even have it? Is it just you and me, Donna, or do we have other people here? Oh, we still have most of it.
We have a lot of people.
The other thing that I do to kind of help maintain moisture, and this is a me thing, I haven't seen this anywhere else, but I think it really does help. I take old cardboard from Amazon boxes or whatever. Obviously I order things online, and I cut it to fit inside of here, and then I set my little seed things down on top of it here, and then that way when I'm watering, it's holding that water in, and I just find that to be a really good recycling method for me. Obviously you don't have to do that, and not everyone does, but I put that cardboard down, and then it helps hold the moisture in, to kind of create this little microclimate.
So you get a humidity from that, but exactly. It doesn't block the drainage.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And because it would have that, even if it's blocking the holes, it still has wet cardboard. So the soil and the roots can suck the moisture right off of that cardboard. And it's been really successful for me.
Regarding the little plants that are waiting in the basement or your kitchen, when you run the fan on them, were you referring to like a floor fan that you would have? And you
I use like a box fan, like a window box fan, and I just set it on the lowest level and point it at it, and you can see them kind of vibrating with the wind, and that's kind of it's like giving them a pretend actual wind. You know what I mean? Like giving them an idea of what they're in for, outside. And allowing them to strengthen. That again is some people do it, some people don't, but it's definitely Bonnie says strength training. Exactly. Get in the gym, plants. And so, it's just kind of giving them something, but again, it's not something that everyone does. So don't feel like you're oh, I gotta go buy a fan now. Don't worry about that. If you don't have one, you can just still try it out without it.
Yeah. That's I think a great idea. I was thinking that, I find it to be, as you do, very exciting to be planting all these different varieties of seeds, almost giddy.
Yeah.
And that's how I think people plant too much. So,
I wouldn't know anything about planting too much, Donna.
okay, I'm sure you don't. However, in the vein of people who do plant too much, so if you have that excess of yellow squash and cucumbers, please don't forget the food pantry. Let's just get
Yeah.
it in there.
Yeah.
And, it seemed to me that this is such a labor of love that wouldn't it be delightful to grow plants that could be planted in a container and give them, after you grow your plants, put them in a container planter and give them as a gift to somebody. I think
Yeah.
this would be just a really kind of unique, maybe I'm crazy, I don't look for these kinds of gifts, I don't know, but I think that that would be just a lovely thing to
And if
pass
you
on.
do have excess, you can always contact the extension office because sometimes people are looking for plants, or we have resources on who we could spread that wealth to. Or somebody that could raise that plant as their own, adopt that plant, and then give the food to the food pantry. So don't waste for sure. And if you're feeling like you had too many seeds, I know that seeds have an expiration date. I know that, but if you keep them in a cool, dry place like your basement or something like that, you really should be able to use your seeds again. Maybe not forever, but at least for another year. But I've had 3 and 4-year-old seeds that have done okay. Don't tell anybody.
Okay. So last but not least, unless there's more questions, there's no more questions in the chat. So I will just ask you this. Okay, so if I'm backing off from the last frost date, and we know not to take that
Yeah.
out the door, we have to use common sense on it, but let's say it's April 30th. I should be getting my seats now and all my equipment. And so April back to
So we're right
March.
now in 10 to 12 weeks beforehand. So I put it in my calendar. If you have seeds that are 8-week plants, I put like a little reminder in my calendar because it's easy to forget. Right now I have a reminder that, Natalie, don't forget to plant your 10 to 12 week seeds. I'm going to wait a little bit on mine and maybe move mine off a little week just because the weather has been bonkers. And I'd rather not have to donate. So things right now that we should be planting, a lot of times it's peppers and, celery, things like that, things that could use a little extra. Sorry, I started answering your question, but I don't even know what it was. So
well, that's okay. You're reading my mind. It's
okay.
fine. Yeah. So it's like, so we need to get on this right away. But the first one, we're going to have to do our little 4-hour afternoon Saturday thing a couple of times. So we're going to get our 12-week seeds, our 8-week seeds.
Yeah.
There's nothing sooner than that, right? Nothing smaller than 8 weeks.
No. And there are things that you can start in the fall, things like garlic and onions, but a lot of times those things are in outside. You'll start them outside. But yeah, if you miss it and you're late, it's totally fine. Gardening is kind of adaptable. It's the reason that you want to start it so early is to give yourself the best chance of growing season and the best chance of germination. So if you miss it and you're a couple weeks late, it'll be okay. It'll go, your pepper plants might be a couple inches shorter than somebody who started them at 12 weeks, but they're still going to have that advantage of starting inside and they'll do okay.
Okay, so I don't have to rush an order in tonight, but it should be soon.
Soon, yes.
Okay. Well, I think that sets me up to not go too crazy. At least I'll try to resist. And then at our next program, will you talk about well, I'm just going to ask you now. Okay.
Yeah.
So root vegetables like beets and carrots.
Yeah.
I'm always reluctant to plant those because I'm afraid that my raised beds aren't deep enough. How deep should I be going with this? How do you know?
So I did grow carrots in a 6-inch bed last year. If you don't have a deep bed, you might want to grow something like a baby beet or a baby carrot. I grew what's called like they're gross names. They're called baby finger carrots. I don't know why. But so you just want to kind of pick your variety. I did grow beets in a 6-inch bed last year, but they were small. So I would say if you want to grow a lot of root vegetables, I'm actually building a deeper bed this year. I'm building a 12-inch bed. But then that's more soil too. So if you don't want to do that, you don't want to pay for more soil or that kind of thing, then just pick and choose your varietal. Because yeah, I did grow successful carrots in a 6-inch bed, and they were really decent. They just were a different, I just grew a baby carrot size.
Okay, and if you check the chat, there's another
Yes.
comment about decorative cabbage.
So Melissa, I plant my mums every year and they grow back. So hopefully yours will too. I've never grown decorative cabbage back. I've never tried. That's not saying it won't. Cabbage is a little bit different because it is a little bit more susceptible to frost, but my mums grow back every year. And I just keep planting them in different places in my flower beds, and then I have some nice fall color as well. Now they're not going to necessarily be the perfect round beautiful one that you got from Bojo's or wherever. They might be a little more scraggly, but they will still flower and have some really nice foliage all the way into fall. My mums start in spring, and I have foliage from spring, and then they flower in the fall. So it's really kind of a nice thing to have in your yard.
Sounds lovely. Well, I think that's, well, let's see. Was that another one?
Oh, no, she was just saying thanks.
Oh,
We're good.
okay.
You're welcome,
All right.
Melissa.
So I think we'll call it a night on this. I look forward to the next one in our whole food and cooking series with what's in the garden.
Yeah, definitely. And so we will see you guys in March. Thank you for coming tonight. And in March, we're going to talk about what kind of food crops you could grow if you have a small garden, or what you could go if you're going to go whole ham and have a big ton of acreage. So we'll see you then.
All right. And with that, I think we'll say goodnight to Natalie. Good night, folks. And we'll see you soon. Stay warm.
Bye.
Bye.